Hey guys, it's Alexis, aka The Soft Reader, and I'm here today to do another Favorites Friday video. First off, I want to apologize for not uploading one last week. Pretty much it came down to the fact that the water in our building got shut off, so I couldn't take a shower for a few days, and I looked gross, and I was like, I'm not going to subject people on the internet to seeing me look like garbage. So, I basically waited until our water got turned off, but that wasn't until Saturday, and so I was just like, whatever. But as always, Favorites Friday is just a video I upload every Friday where I talk about non-bookish favorites of mine in a specific topic. I will leave the playlist down below where I've done previous Favorites Fridays videos, so you guys can check them out if you want to. This week's Favorite Friday video is going to be my favorite musicals. Now, I have been fortunate enough that I have been seeing musicals for a very long time. I mean, as far back as I can remember, my grandmother always took me to see musicals when I was a kid, and she still will take me to see one usually once a year, and I've been very fortunate at that. Some of my best friends are musical theater majors, so I usually always go see the musicals that they are in when they do ones for school. And just in general, I really love listening to musicals soundtracks. I spend a lot of my time doing that, especially when I'm driving in the car on road trips. I love musical soundtracks during that. It's the best. I have seen most of the musicals on this list. There's only about, I think, 2 or 3 that I haven't seen in person. Some of these are very popular musicals because I think it's silly that a popular musical can't be your favorite. That's silly to me. But I kind of have different reasons for doing different musicals on this list. A few of them are just because watching them and seeing them live is such an experience, because I know that there's definitely 2 on this list that I say that for. But I will just go ahead and get into it so you guys can see what my favorite musicals are. The first musical I'm going to mention is kind of the big one at the moment, and of course that is Hamilton. Now, Hamilton is not my favorite musical by far, but I would be lying if I said that I didn't really love it, and I don't go back and listen to it all the time. So I definitely had to include Hamilton on this list. For those of you who don't know, Hamilton basically tells the story of Alexander Hamilton, founding father, pretty much from the time about when he kind of starts making a name for himself in the United States all the way up until his death in a duel at the hands of Aaron Burr. But I think that there's really 2 reasons why I love Hamilton so much and why I keep coming back to it. The first is that I genuinely think it's so clever. I think the way that Lin-Manuel Miranda just connects, a piece of our history from the late 1700s, early 1800s to where we are now in, when he completed it was, 2015? So that's really impressive to connect those 2 ideas and to do them so seamlessly to where it doesn't feel like it's out of place, it feels natural. And also I just think that so much of the lyrics and the quips are so clever, and a lot of the set design is so clever, and that's just really impressive to me. And that wasn't even a thing that I really noticed until I had read Hamilton the Revolution, but it's genuinely just such a clever musical. And the second reason why I find myself continuously coming back to Hamilton is because I really love a lot of old school hip-hop, and that's where Lin-Manuel Miranda took so much of his inspiration for a lot of the music in it is from a lot of old school hip-hop, A Tribe Called Quest, Biggie Smalls, and so just so much of that, is just where he got a lot of his inspiration from, and that's a lot of stuff that I really like. So yeah, that's pretty much the only reason why I continuously find myself coming back to Hamilton. The next musical I'm going to mention is another musical I haven't seen yet. Unfortunately, I couldn't get tickets when it came to Birmingham, and that is The Last 5 Years. And there is a movie of The Last 5 Years starring Anna Kendrick and Jeremy Jordan, so if you want to watch that, you can. But The Last 5 Years is another one, to me, that it's just the music in it, it just totally blows my mind. The Last 5 Years tells the story of Jamie and Kathy, and it's basically about the 5 years of the relationship from when they meet up until their relationship ends. But what's so unique about The Last 5 Years is that their stories are told opposite. So Kathy's side of the story starts from when they break up, and it goes back in time to the beginning of their relationship, while Jamie's half of the story starts with when they first get together and goes forward in time to the end of their relationship. And like, so they're going, you know, in opposite directions. They meet in the middle, and then they reverse to covering the end and then the beginning, opposite of what they were at the beginning of the show. Which sounds complicated, but like, and that's like really important when you're in the terms of the soundtrack, because so much of Kathy's later songs, which take place at the beginning of their relationship, reference songs that she sings in the first half of the musical, which is about the end of their relationship, and it's the same with Jamie. So some of the songs he sings at the end of the musical, which is about the beginning of their relationship, reference back to the music, you know, that took place at his songs at the beginning of the musical, which are about the beginning of their relationship. I know that's super confusing, and I might have misspoken there, but it's just, it's so, like, I just, like, a lot of times when certain notes will repeat, or when certain lines will be repeated in different contexts because it's referencing different points in their relationship, I go crazy for that. Like, I think it's so clever, and I just love the music so much. And I forgot to mention this with Hamilton, but it's the same with The Last 5 Years. I really can't choose a favorite song. The Last 5 Years doesn't have nearly as many songs as Hamilton does, but in The Last 5 Years, there's genuinely, I mean, every song in the musical I really, really love. Some of the songs I didn't like at first, but I really like them now, like If I Didn't Believe in You, which is one of Jamie's songs. And then some of Kathy's songs that I've loved since the beginning. When I first heard them, I still really love, like I Can Do Better Than That or Still Hurting. It's just, I really, 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 really love The Last 5 Years. And there's various amounts of soundtracks. You can listen to the movie soundtrack, or there's been several cast recordings that you can listen to. But I love the music in The Last 5 Years so much, and I highly, highly recommend it. The next one I'm going to mention is kind of a really, really big musical in the musical theater community. It's one of those popular ones that, like, people say you're not a musical theater fan if you love this musical. And that is Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera. And the main reason that, you know, I still really love a lot of the songs in Phantom of the Opera. I still love Music of the Night. I still love Phantom of the Opera, the title track. All I Ask of You is still really beautiful to me. I love the reprise for that song as well. But Phantom of the Opera is one of those shows that is just a really unique experience to see live because of how they do some of the certain setting choices, and how the Phantom kind of appears through random spaces throughout the theater at certain points in the show, and so that's so interesting to see live because I don't want to spoil it, but you know, you'll be sitting in the show and characters on stage will be talking, and then all of a sudden, you know, the Phantom will appear somewhere else in the theater and you'll be like, what? And so, like, it's just such a fun experience to see live, and it's such a fun experience to see live, and I love the costuming and the setting for Phantom of the Opera a lot. And so yeah, that's one of the shows that for me is a little sentimental, but it's also just that it's a real fun show to see live. The next show I'm going to mention is the other one that's on this list because of just how special it is to see live, and that is The Lion King. And of all of the Disney adapted musicals I've seen, The Lion King is my favorite, and that's just because the costuming in The Lion King show is so amazing. It's so beautiful. Like, it's like just seeing how they make humans into these animals, and they have like, and it's some of them are puppets, so some of them are, you know, people with hand puppets, but they're not just hand puppets, they're like hand puppets but also half a costume. Some people come in and like their elephants are just like beautiful fabric on poles that people are just walking down the aisles, but it's so beautiful. Like, that I think is the one thing everybody says about The Lion King, is they're just like, it's so gorgeous. Just watching it live is so beautiful because it's so mesmerizing, and how they do all the costuming and stuff is just so incredible. My favorite songs for The Lion King are going to be my favorite songs for The Lion King movie, which are probably going to be I Just Can't Wait to Be King and Be Prepared, though of course I'm a sucker for Can You Feel the Love Tonight, but Be Prepared is my favorite song from The Lion King movie too, and it's my favorite song to see done on stage. But The Lion King, seriously, if you've never seen it, and if you've ever wanted to see one Disney musical, in my opinion, it should be The Lion King because it's so beautiful. The next one I'm going to mention is a personal favorite of mine, and that's because I watched the movie adaptation of this play when I was a little girl, and so it was no surprise that I grew up and the musical grew to be one of my favorites, and that is Little Shop of Horrors. And I'm sure most of you have seen the movie. The movie is still one of my favorite movies too, but I also just love the show so much. And part of that is probably my love for the movie, but I love the show, and I just love the plot of Little Shop of Horrors so much. I like the music a lot too. Of course, Alan Menken does the music. For those of you who don't know, he does a lot of the music for the 90s era Disney movies. Alan Menken does the music for most of those. Which is why someone pointed out to me the song Somewhere That's Green from Little Shop of Horrors is like the exact same music as Part of Your World from The Little Mermaid, and it totally is if you listen to it. It's like the same. But yes, I love Little Shop of Horrors. Little Shop of Horrors is just so much fun. For those of you who don't know, Little Shop of Horrors basically tells the story of a young man named Seymour who works at a shop, and basically one day he stumbles upon an alien life form that is disguised as a plant, and the plant basically desires blood, and it desires human flesh, and so basically this giant plant, which Seymour nicknames Audrey 2, basically is like, hey, feed me people, Seymour, and I'll make all your dreams come true. And so Seymour is like, can you win me the heart of the woman I love? And Audrey 2 is like, yeah, sure. And so he's like, okay. And so it's basically about him kind of creating this monster out of Audrey 2, who's already a monster, but he's helping Audrey 2 grow. And then it's about kind of him realizing he doesn't need Audrey 2 to win the heart of Audrey, who he loves. And kind of about how, he realizes he doesn't need the plant anymore. And it's about him trying to fight the plant off. It's funny, it's kind of dark in a lot of ways. The music's great. Again, it's Alan Menken. He's just really talented. And so, yeah, that's all I have to say about Little Shop of Horrors, but I'm sure most of you have seen the movie, and if not, I recommend that too, because quite frankly, I love them both. The next one I'm going to mention is another really popular musical, and this is another one that I unfortunately haven't seen, and that is Rent. And I think Rent appeals to me. I love the music in Rent for sure, but I also think the subject matter of Rent really appeals to me a lot too, because kind of the AIDS epidemic and kind of just, queer lifestyle, both of those topics are interesting to me. And so I think the story is it's a story that there's no way I couldn't have fallen in love with. But I genuinely just really, really love Rent a lot. Favorite song from Rent? I don't know. I really, really like I'll Cover You. And the reprise for that song always makes me tear up. I'm a fan of that one. I really, really love Out Tonight just because it's such a fun song. I really like What You Own. I don't know, Rent is kind of one of those musicals that I feel like I always listen to start to finish because it just paints such a beautiful picture when you listen to it that way. But yes, I really love Rent. Rent is another one that there's a movie, and I'll say this too, is that the movie is most of the cast from the original cast recording of the show, so that's pretty nice. But yeah, I really like Rent. And I've definitely seen the movie plenty of times, but I mostly listen to the cast recording, and I definitely will see the show live one of these days. I just haven't had a chance to yet. The next one is going to be a musical that's pretty obscure. I'm sure most of you haven't heard of it. I hadn't heard of it until I was in it. Not the original, obviously, but when I was a senior in high school, the kind of senior musical that we did that it took us 6 months to do was Frankenstein, a new musical, and for that reason it's just one of my favorites because I was in our high school production of it. But Frankenstein, a new musical, is just an adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which interestingly enough I had studied when I was a freshman in high school and I hadn't liked it, and then we did the musical for it and I became so intimately familiar with it from doing the musical that now it's one of my favorite books. But but I love the musical so much. And unfortunately, I don't think you can listen to it on Spotify, but I know iTunes has it. But it's really good, especially if you're familiar at all with Frankenstein as a story. It's so, so good. Like, it's a really, really good musical, and the music is so fantastic. And it all kind of has that, 1800s feel to it, but it's so good, and a lot of the numbers are so large, and it's great. That's another one I can't choose a favorite for because, I participated in every ensemble song when I was in the show in high school, but then listening to it as a cast recording for the original cast recording, there's so many songs that I really love, so that's another one I can't choose a favorite for that one, but I love Frankenstein so much. The final musical I'm going to mention is the most recent one I've seen on this list because I only saw it last year, I want to say, and I saw it in Atlanta, and that is the Tuck Everlasting musical. Now, part of the reason that I love this musical as much as I do is because Tuck Everlasting is one of my favorite things to exist. It's one of my favorite books. It's one of my favorite movies. So when my friend was like, hey, let's go see the Tuck Everlasting musical together, I was like, excuse me? But it's genuinely just so good, and it went to Broadway, I think, at the end of last year, I want to say. And the whole soundtrack's on Spotify, so you can listen to it. I think all of these soundtracks are on Spotify except for, I want to say, Frankenstein, a New Musical. But the Tuck Everlasting soundtrack is so beautiful, especially if you're a fan of the story anyway. My favorite song is definitely Time, which is the song that Miles Tuck sings about his story, which I won't spoil it for any of you who haven't read the book or seen the movie or seen the musical. But it's such a beautiful song, and it literally made me and my friend Ben, we saw it together, it made both of us cry. He had already seen it, and he still cried. And I cried because it's such a beautiful song. But I also just really love the opening number, which is Good Girl Winnie Foster. And just, yeah, and this is kind of another one where it's like, my love for it is just because Tuck Everlasting is like my favorite. Yeah, so I love the Tuck Everlasting musical. And I've heard that they've changed it for the Broadway number, but when I saw it, there was this really big dance number at the end that was like a ballet number to kind of show like the ending of the story, which again I don't want to spoil, but it was really beautiful and really well done, and it like is totally emotional for like a 10-minute scene that has no words, but it's all dancing, and so that was just like gorgeous to watch. But yes, but unfortunately I did hear that they changed that a little for the Broadway production, but I haven't seen the Broadway adaptation of it, so I don't know. But yes, so Tuck Everlasting. I recommend all adaptations of Tuck Everlasting because I love them. Alright guys, so those were a list of my favorite musicals. All in all, I've personally probably seen in between 30 and 40 musicals. So to kind of narrow it down to 8 or 10, I don't remember, or 9 maybe. I think it might have been 9. Was kind of difficult, especially because I kind of just had to write down everyone that I've seen and kind of cross out the ones that I was like, this one was okay. And there are some that I've seen that that I love, but I couldn't put them on this list because I don't feel like they competed with my affection for some of the other shows on this list. But yeah, again, I've seen plenty of musicals. Some of the more recent musicals I'm not quite up to date on, but I know that there's a couple my friends have been telling me to check out, so I'll probably be listening to cast recordings of those pretty soon. But you guys should let me know if you guys are big fans of musicals, what's your favorite musical, or if you just want to gush with me in the comments about any of these musicals, because I'm sure there'll be Ham fans coming up in here. But I'll see you guys soon with another video. Bye!